My lovely, wonderful, beautiful, handsome people, a pleasant evening to you. You know, I was watching the news this evening and I saw something that just made me feel incensed. It made me feel as though they're taking the Jamaican people for idiots. And you'd be surprised, and I'm going to tell you why. I don't remember it verbatim, so I'm going to paraphrase it. Poor parenting technically contributes to, not necessarily predominantly, but to a significant portion of the bad behavior emitted in schools among the students. And when I saw that, I felt very incensed because I said to myself, people like me have been preaching on this for a while, for a long time. We have been preaching on this for a while, and it has gone on deaf ears. And when I saw that, I'm saying to myself, is it that somebody had to pay some money for it to come on the news? When we have been, people like me and many others have been preaching, so to speak, on social media, traditional media, in person, that bad or poor parenting contributes greatly to bad behavior in schools among children. Your parents are your primary, your main source of socialization. They are. You are learning them, they are learning you. You are learning about them, they are learning about you. But the thing is this, as a child, because you came into the world empty, you now have to be filled. Your parents are no longer at the empty stage. They are filled. So they are pouring into you, into your blank slate, and filling you up. And that is why we say children, for example, they learn by modeling. I remember a few years ago when my niece was a little girl. She's now a young adult. And she's an American. And I remember I said something, in patois, in our dialect. And she kept repeating it over. It sounded humorous or hilarious to her. And she kept repeating it as close as possible to how I said it. The intonation, the pitch, the tonality, everything she embodied. And immediately it came to my mind, what if it was something negative I had said? I would have planted a bad seed in my niece. I was disturbed by the laugh because I said, oh my God, that when that thought came to me, and she wouldn't stop repeating it for a long time. I think I had to say, all right, enough now. Children learn by modeling. And if mainly they're around the primary source, then mainly the bad or the poor parenting will contribute predominantly to the poor, the bad, the insidious, I call it, behavioral or behaviors in schools. Children often imitate what they repeatedly see. If a child observes adults responding to frustration with shouting, insults, threats, or violence, the child may learn that these are acceptable ways to handle conflict. Inconsistent discipline creates uncertainty. So you don't beat them today and tomorrow you don't. Lord, they sound cute when they tell me indecent words. They sound cute. These things happen. So the disrespect is in its embryonic stage. It is birthed because the parent is allowing it. If a parent sometimes severely punishes a behavior but ignores the same behavior at another time, the child may not develop clear boundaries. They're going to see as hypocritical. Or when you're in your mood, the child can learn to test the limits. They're going to do that. Lack of supervision removes accountability. You should not just leave your child willy-nilly. You need to monitor them. You need to monitor them like how you monitor your bank accounts. You need to monitor probably even more. Because children are curious. They're not at the filled stage. If we as adults are so-called and I use this loosely, we're not filled. We may think we are. The more I read, the more I realize how unfilled, if there is such a word, I am, meaning I realize how much I don't know. So if we are at the so-called, literally so-called filled stage, can you imagine the picking of them were just born? They're learning, they're very curious. So they're going to test everything, they're going to query everything, they're going to be curious, not fast, not necessarily inquisitive. You know, it's almost like having an inquisition, getting some information, probing, and getting pertinent information because they're learning. They're learning life. They're learning about you. They're learning about themselves. They're learning about the world. So when they come with this gimmickry, I call it, and almost taking us for idiots about there is a correlation between bad parenting and bad behaviors in schools, the most illiterate person knows that. The school children in London knows that. The baby that was just born knows that. It is ridiculous. When I saw it, many of us have been crying out and saying that a number of parents need guidance in how to parent their child. But maybe who is out there giving the so-called guidance needs guidance themselves. So it's a worldwide web of dishonesty, of pretense, of hypocrisy. We don't even have to guess. And I feel no qualms if somebody says 90% of the bad behaviors we see in schools are related to bad parenting, poor parenting, no parenting. I would accept that as fact, or as a fact. I personally would. It is a reality. Children live what they learn. They model you. You may think that they're ignoring you, but they're not. So when I see this is something that has been said over and over and over again. Harsh punishment can teach aggression rather than self-control. It is like having rules without relationship. It breeds rebellion. We're not created to be battered and beaten and tortured. Some of you parents are coarse. C-O-A-R-S-E. You're worse than rough sand or sandpaper. You beat the child to smithereens thinking that you're instilling discipline and self-control. You're not. You're teaching them how to treat you in the future. I have to say it that way, in the future. You are teaching them how to treat you in the future. Children need emotional regulation to behave well. Responsive parenting helps children learn to identify and regulate emotions. They have to learn how to manage it. If a child's emotions are routinely dismissed, ridiculed, or met with hostility, the child may have greater difficulty managing anger, which is the strongest emotion, frustration, or even disappointment. And that is why some of them, unfortunately, off themselves, they end up creating mass murders. They do all manner of evil. When they become adults, boundaries teach respect for authority. This is a big problem that I see. A child who grows up with reasonable, consistent boundaries is more likely to understand concepts such as consequences, responsibility, and respect. Without boundaries, the transition to a structured environment, such as a school, can be difficult. How I realize that many people are not taught boundaries. You're in a line and they're right up behind you. If you move your hand like this, you're in their torso. The neglect of children can produce attention-seeking behavior. That is why, yes, you don't tell your child you love them. You're not affectionately loving. You know? Poor parenting contributes greatly, or by and large, to the bad behaviors we see in schools, which ultimately, it's like an avalanche. It affects how they perform in schools. Not saying, it is as strong as the bad behavior, but it affects. So I'm going to come with it as though it is new. Stop the ridiculous. thing. Guys, you know what to do, TikTok and YouTube. Subscribe, give me one of those lions, and follow me on Instagram.